For weeks, millions of people were glued to the story. Everyone was looking for clues, asking the exact same question: what happened to Gabby Petito? To understand why this case hit everyone so hard, we have to go back to the very beginning. Before the headlines, when there was still hope. In July of 2021, 22-year-old Gabby Petito and her fiancé, Brian Laundrie, set out on what many young couples would describe as the adventure of a lifetime. Their plan was ambitious but increasingly popular among a generation inspired by social media travel culture. They would convert a white Ford Transit van into a small mobile home and spend months driving across the United States, documenting breathtaking landscapes, national parks, and the freedom of life on the open road. Their online posts reflected that dream. Mountains framed sunsets, quiet lakes mirrored endless skies, small cafes and hiking trails became backdrops for carefully edited photographs and short videos. Gabby had begun creating travel content, hoping to build a following around van life and exploration. Her Instagram account presented a story of optimism, creativity, and possibility. To casual observers, the couple seemed deeply connected by a shared passion for adventure. Yet social media often captures only selected moments. Between photographs lasting a fraction of a second are hours, days, and weeks that remain unseen. As the couple continued westward, they visited several famous destinations across the American West. The towering cliffs of Colorado, the dramatic rock formations of Utah, and eventually the vast wilderness surrounding Wyoming became chapters in their journey. Each destination offered another opportunity to create content, another memory preserved online. But behind the polished images, there were signs that all was not well. On August 12, 2021, those private struggles briefly entered public view. In the city of Moab, Utah, witnesses contacted emergency services after observing what appeared to be an argument involving the couple near a grocery store. Reports described a visibly emotional confrontation before the pair drove away in their van. Officers from the Moab Police Department located the vehicle shortly afterward and initiated a traffic stop. What happened next would later become one of the most analyzed pieces of evidence in the entire investigation. The responding officers were equipped with body-worn cameras, recording nearly every moment of the encounter. The footage shows Gabby visibly distressed. She is crying, struggling to regain composure, and speaking with officers while standing beside the van. Brian appears noticeably calmer during much of the interaction. Both acknowledge that an argument had taken place. Officers spend considerable time separating the couple, asking questions independently in an effort to understand what had happened. The conversation remains remarkably ordinary in many respects. There are no dramatic confessions or obvious revelations. Instead, viewers witness two young people under stress, attempting to explain an emotionally charged disagreement while standing beneath the intense desert sun. Gabby tells officers that she has been struggling with anxiety, explaining that the pressures of constant travel and content creation had become overwhelming. The challenges of living together in a confined vehicle, she explains, had created tension between them. Brian also describes the argument, acknowledging that emotions had escalated. Officers observe minor visible injuries, but determine that the situation does not warrant criminal charges. Instead, they decide to separate the couple for the night. Brian is transported to a nearby hotel arranged through a local domestic violence resource organization, while Gabby remains with the van. The encounter ends peacefully. At the time, it appeared to be a routine police response to a domestic dispute. Thousands of similar interactions occur every year without further incident. Only later would the footage acquire extraordinary significance. Millions of people would eventually watch those recordings frame by frame, searching for clues hidden in facial expressions, pauses, or body language. Experts and amateur analysts alike debated whether warning signs had been overlooked. Others cautioned against drawing conclusions from a brief snapshot of an intensely emotional situation. The body camera footage became less a solution than a reminder of how difficult it can be to understand the dynamics of a relationship from a single encounter. After leaving Moab, the journey continued. For a short time, Gabby's social media activity persisted. Photographs appeared online showing scenic locations across the western United States. Captions described adventure and exploration. To followers, the trip seemed to resume as planned. But investigators would later discover that establishing an exact timeline from those posts was more complicated than it first appeared. Social media uploads do not always occur immediately after photographs are taken. Posts can be delayed by poor internet connections, scheduled in advance, or uploaded from entirely different locations than where the images were captured. What appeared to be a straightforward travel diary soon became a puzzle, requiring careful verification. As August drew to a close, communication with Gabby's family became increasingly inconsistent. Family members later explained that regular contact had slowed. Messages became less frequent. Some texts seemed unusual in wording, prompting growing concern. Loved ones attempted to reach her through calls and messages, but received no reassuring response. At first, uncertainty seemed explainable. Long road trips often involve poor phone reception, changing schedules, and limited connectivity inside remote national parks. But as the days passed, concern gradually transformed into alarm. Meanwhile, another development was quietly unfolding hundreds of miles away. On September 1st, 2021, Brian Laundrie arrived alone at his parents' home in Northport, Florida, driving the same white Ford Transit van that he and Gabby had used throughout their journey. Gabby was not with him. Despite her absence, no missing person report had yet been filed. Families often hesitate before assuming the worst, especially when loved ones are traveling. But within days, Gabby's family concluded that something was seriously wrong. On September 11th, Gabby Petito was officially reported missing. What followed was one of the largest and most closely followed missing person investigations in recent American history. Law enforcement agencies across multiple states began reconstructing nearly every mile of the couple's cross-country journey. Detectives reviewed financial records, cell phone data, surveillance footage, hotel reservations, fuel purchases, and digital communications. Investigators sought to determine not only where Gabby had been, but precisely when each confirmed sighting had occurred. At the same time, an unprecedented public effort emerged online. Travel bloggers began reviewing hours of footage recorded during their own road trips. Campers searched through vacation photographs. Drivers uploaded dash camera recordings from highways stretching across Wyoming and neighboring states. The internet transformed into a massive collaborative investigation, with thousands hoping that an overlooked detail might provide the breakthrough authorities needed. Then, one particular video changed everything. A family traveling through Wyoming had been documenting their vacation with a dashboard-mounted camera while driving through the Spread Creek dispersed camping area near Grand Teton National Park. After learning about Gabby's disappearance, they reviewed their footage and noticed something remarkable. Parked alongside the dirt road was a white Ford Transit van. The timestamp placed the vehicle in exactly the region investigators were focusing on. The video itself lasted only moments, but its importance was enormous. It narrowed search efforts toward a specific area of rugged wilderness, where dense forests, winding creeks, and open fields stretched for miles. Search teams intensified operations there, combining aerial surveillance, ground searches, and canine units to examine terrain that could easily conceal crucial evidence. The landscape itself became part of the mystery. The breathtaking beauty that had attracted countless travelers also presented enormous investigative challenges. Vast distances, unpredictable weather, and remote campsites complicated search operations. In places, silence extended for miles, interrupted only by wind moving through the trees. Days later, investigators made a heartbreaking discovery. On September 19th, search teams working near the Spread Creek dispersed camping area in Wyoming made the discovery everyone had feared. Human remains found not far from where the van had previously been recorded were confirmed to be Gabby Petito. The autopsy concluded that she had died 3 to 4 weeks earlier and ruled her death a homicide caused by blunt force injuries to the head and neck, together with manual strangulation. What had begun as a missing person investigation had become a homicide case. Just days later, on September 23rd, a federal arrest warrant was issued for Brian Laundrie after investigators alleged that he had unlawfully used Gabby's debit card following her death. As the FBI expanded its search, hundreds of officers combed Florida's vast wetlands and nature reserves. following every lead in hopes of locating the only known person who might explain what had happened during those final days on the road. More than a month after Gabby's remains were found, the search came to an end inside the Myakkahatchee Creek Environmental Park. On October 20th, investigators discovered skeletal remains alongside personal belongings belonging to Brian Laundrie in an area that had only recently become accessible after floodwaters receded. Forensic dental records confirmed his identity, and a later examination concluded that he had died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head. Months later, in January 2022, the FBI announced that a notebook recovered near his remains contained written admissions in which Laundrie accepted responsibility for Gabby's death and described sending text messages that falsely suggested she was still alive. Authorities formally concluded that he was responsible for her killing and closed the criminal investigation. When the complete notebook was later released, Laundrie attempted to justify his actions by claiming he believed he was acting mercifully after Gabby had been injured. However, investigators and criminal justice experts noted that his account was inconsistent with the forensic evidence and the medical findings, concluding that his explanation did not align with the established facts of the case. In the end, no courtroom testimony was ever heard, no cross-examination took place, and no jury was given the opportunity to weigh the evidence. The legal process ended not with a trial, but with a notebook, a forensic investigation, and the silence left behind by two lives that never returned from a journey meant to celebrate freedom and adventure. Yet Gabby Petito's story continues to leave a lasting impact. It sparked worldwide conversations about domestic violence, missing person investigations, the influence of social media, and the hidden realities that can exist behind carefully curated online lives. Today, her photographs no longer represent a perfect road trip. They stand as a solemn reminder that the images we share rarely reveal the whole story, and that sometimes the most important warning signs are the ones the world cannot see until it is far too late.